I didn't see you there. But anyway, since you're here, today is Thursday, and it is Thriller Thursday. My name is Shaniaspaharsingh and welcome back to another video. Today is Thursday, so it is Thriller Thursday on my channel. This is a Halloween special that I am doing for the month of October, and if you're interested in me doing it beyond this month, please let me know in the comments below and I'll get right to it for you, my ghouls and goblins. So I must add that today's video is about a very disturbed man. Sick, you may call him. So if you're not really into this type of stuff, I advise you not to watch. But if you are, then buckle up. This story does have cannibalism and graphic scene descriptions. So if you can't handle that, I advise you to not watch. Now without further ado, for those who are still here, let's get into the disturbing story of Joe Metheny. I forgot his name. I was gonna say his full name. Joseph Roy Metheny. Joseph Roy Metheny was born March 2nd, 1955 to Jean Metheny. Joseph grew up in Essex, Maryland, along with his 5 siblings. I'm not so sure of his father's names because it was not mentioned. He died pretty young when Joe was around 6 years old in a car accident. But either way, Joe was not really fond of his father due to his alcoholism, and he said that his father was also abusive. But there's no evidence of that. But that is what Mr. Metheny said about his father. Joe said that his mother neglected him along with his 5 other siblings while she worked several shifts. Side note, I don't really believe that she neglected her children. I think she was just trying to keep the fort down after her husband died. Come on, it's 6 kids. What's a woman gotta do? You know what I'm saying? She worked several jobs, including food truck driver and waitress. Joe said that his upbringing was hard and his mother would send him as well as his other siblings to go live in foster-like families. This, however, his mother, Jean, claimed was a lie in an interview, and that Joseph was just trying to make his upbringing seem a little tougher, I guess. But she said that he had a very decent upbringing. Despite their financial hoops, they were never hungry or homeless. Jean, Joe's mother, also added that Joe was an above average student, was polite, and never rude. She also said in an interview, I quote, "He was smart and had a good childhood. If he was neglected, it was his own fault. It was a pretty good home." Kind of harsh, right, Jean? After Joe, we're gonna call him for short, Joe. After Joe turned 18, he joined the military where he served in Germany, but Joe claimed that he served in Vietnam, but his mother said that she had no memory of that. But Joe insisted that he served in Vietnam because that's where he got addicted to heroin and cocaine. Like, gee, I remember where I got addicted to things. Don't tell me that it was Germany, because I know where I got addicted. You know, that's like such a weird way to remember where you served. That's where I got addicted to drugs. Don't correct me. It was later discovered that he did serve in the army, but there was no records of him in Vietnam, and around that time there was no direct contact with Vietnam. So that's all a little bit confusing, but stick with me a little bit. Regardless of where Joe was stationed, whether Germany or Vietnam, Sesame Street, I don't know, regardless of where he was stationed, after he joined the military, he hardly spoke to his mother, Jean, and he was really strung out on drugs after all of that. So there was really no contact between him and his mother. It was just him and his drugs. Because of Joe's substance abuse, it was very hard for him to really get a steady job, but he did find few jobs as a truck driver and a forklifter. really hope I'm saying that correctly, if it's called a forklifter driver. But those were some of the jobs that he was able to get. He didn't have that much money to really buy a house, so he was kind of homeless for a while, living in some type of community. I don't know the correct word for it, and I don't really want to slander anybody, but it was a place where homeless people would just stay in that area. There was no building, but that's where they all would gather, if that makes sense. Can you get a visual? But yeah. So Joe, despite his substance abuse, he found himself a little lady. I am not sure of her name, and I don't think she would like to be mentioned because of the story. But he found himself a little lady. Sadly, she was also an addict, but despite all of that, they got married and they later had a child together, a son. Not so sure of his name, nor will I mention it, but they had a son together. And eventually Joe and his little lady gathered enough money to afford a trailer. So that's where they were staying. It was not a big trailer, I've read. It was a small enough to live, you know. I don't really know what to say. They just said that it was small and compact. So one night on July 1994, Joe came home from work. He was working overtime. Joe came home from work and the lights were off. So he thought that was pretty weird because they're usually on at night. So when he opened his trailer door, oh my god, dust went in my eye. So when he opened his trailer door and flicked on the light switch, he found that all of his furniture was gone, including his kid and his wife. They were all gone. Nobody was there. Nothing was there. He went to go, you know, search for her because he was wondering what happened, you know. It was later found out by Joe that she had just left him and took the kid for some guy. And the least she could do was leave the furniture, right? Take the kid, or maybe leave the kid, because that was Joe's pride and joy. Which, speaking of, he actually started a little rampage for his son. This rampage started when Joe went to go buy some substances from his dealer in the same vicinity where he was once living. And the dealer just briefly mentioned that his ex-wife had left him for this guy that lived at the other end of town. And they are not doing a pretty good job taking care of Joe's son. So the child services came and took their child for neglect and abuse. So that made Joe very upset because he could not get his son back because of his criminal record, as well as the whole substance thing with him also. He was an addict. So he knew that going to, what are those people called again? Child service agencies, he knew that it was basically a lost cause. So the only thing the guy is to do is just sit there and mourn, right? Oh, side note, this is not really important, but he also found out that this boyfriend was, I'm trying to find a decent word. Is pimp a good word? But the boyfriend was enabling the wife to go and sell her body so they could afford drugs for both of them. That was the situation in her case. So anyway, Joe found that out and he mentioned it in his confession, and he found it pretty funny. He laughed at it. But yeah, I don't know why I mentioned it. It's not really important, but I just thought that it was something. So anyway, Joe was going to go find his ex-wife as well as her new boyfriend, but he did not know exactly where they were staying. Joe said that her leaving was not the problem. He would have paid for her, his ex-wife, to leave, but he just wanted his son back. The dealer also told Joe that they were going to get high. They were going to get high with two homeless people that also lived under the bridge with them. So it's 4 of them, the ex-wife, her new boyfriend, and 2 other homeless people. 4 people under the bridge, okay? So Joe, finding that out, he went to that bridge to go find them, hoping to see his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, but he only found the two homeless people passed out on what he called a stinking mattress. Joe was pretty mad that he did not find his ex-wife and her new boyfriend there, so he kinda, sorta, maybe, kinda, sorta, chopped those two homeless people up in their sleep. Hardcore. Yeah. Joe said in his interview that he left the two homeless people right where they were, you know, with them being chopped up. After that little scene, Joe went to go find a sex worker in that same area to go attempt to extract information from her about his ex and her new boyfriend. He brought her down to the bridge. I'm not really sure if she spotted the bodies or not, but I'm gonna assume that she did not. But she was brought onto the bridge in an attempt to get information from, under the illusion that Joe was gonna give her free substances. He attempted to ask her a few questions about his ex and her new boyfriend, but he said she acted as if she didn't know. That must have frustrated Joe, because he then started to beat her, rape her, and then ultimately killing her. So after attempt number 1, he attempted again with another sex worker, bringing her down to the bridge under the illusion that she was getting free substances. Attempted to ask her questions. She did not know, or acted as if she didn't know. And he also did the same thing with her as the first one, which is beat, rape, and then ultimately killing. Joe was going to dispose of her body in the bushes, as well as along with the other sex worker and the two homeless people I mentioned before. But when he looked up the river, he saw, and I quote, "a old black man fishing on the river." Looking back at Joe, and Joe, he didn't want to be, you know, turned in, so he said he grabbed a steel pipe that he saw on, you know, the area, and he chased up the river to the black man, or the old man, let me just say the old man, to the older man, and he said he cracked his skull wide open with the steel pipe. To dispose of the bodies, Joe gathered all of the bodies and filled it. Okay, I'm not sure. Joe actually said he used stones. It was not specified if he put the stones inside their bodies or if he tied the stones on them. But either way, there were stones used to sink the 5 people into the river. Joe said that was a busy night for me. 5 bodies in 7 hours. That's actually what he said in his interview. He was pretty proud, I must add. He was pretty proud in his confession about all of it. So Joe spent a few days cleaning up the crime scene as best as he could, and then he left. 2 weeks later, however, he was actually arrested under the suspicion of murder for those same people. But he was later released after 18 months spent in Baltimore City jail. With 1 week of trial, it was thrown out of the court because of lack of evidence. So close, but so far, so very far. But anyway, how are they supposed to know what was gonna happen next, right? Right. Joe was actually fired from his job as a truck driver, so he went back to his boss to plead with him to give him back his old job. His boss ultimately agreed, but Joe did not have a place to stay, but he knew that his boss had an open trailer on the property where he could, you know, live for a while. I must add that this property was at a isolated dead end of the road, so there was hardly any activity around that side. It was just the property, and then there were some woods behind the property, which Joe said was perfect for what he wanted to do. I wonder what that could be. Joe was at this isolated dead end of the road with nobody around. So what was the first thing that he did? Well, Joe actually lured 2 sex workers to his house, trailer, and he attempted, well, not really attempted, but he killed them and butchered their bodies. He sliced their, and I really don't want to get too graphic, but he sliced their meat off of their bodies and put it into Tupperware. Then he placed it into the freezer. I have no comments for any of this more than wow. Anyway, he placed their meat into the freezer, and the remains, he disposed of them into several, what's it called again? Several shallow graves in the nearby woods behind his property. So if you thought the sickness and horror was over, little Joe was just getting started. So over the next few weeks on the weekends, Joe opened up an open grill. Do you have any ideas what he was serving? None? No ideas? Okay, let me give you a little hint. Back to the first incident after he moved to the property. What could it be? So his burger pit was going all dandy until he ran out of his special meat. Wink wink. So this type of meat you can't buy in the grocery store. So where's little old Joe gonna get it? Well, Joe actually lured another sex worker to his trailer, and as soon as she stepped through the door, he ripped her clothes off and started beating her. Okay, listen, I am no butcher here or specialize in meat, but I think scaring or beating the person, wouldn't the meat taste bad? Like, I've heard people say like they release this type of chemical in their body that make the meat taste bad. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that in there. Anyway, this poor woman was screaming her lungs out, but she was at an isolated dead end of the road, so nobody could hear her, and Joe knew that, so he started laughing. Joe later turned his back for a split second, which he later said was his mistake. The woman saw her opportunity, dashed through the door, no close, and headed straight for the main gate, which was closed, but there was a 10-foot crate stack, such a hard combination, 10-foot crate stack right at the edge of the gate, so she could just easily climb up and just jump over, which is what she did. She ran to the main road, flagging down anybody that was passing. Luckily for her, a pickup truck driver spotted her, picked her up, and drove to the nearest gas station, where she then called the police. Joe said he knew he had been defeated and there was no point in running, so he did not. He simply walked back to his trailer, picked up the lady's clothes, got the keys to the main gate, opened the main gate, and waited for the police to show up. Which shortly after he opened the main gate, a cop car pulled up, a officer jumped out and pulled his gun on him, saying that he should get on the ground. I forgot to mention that Joe is actually a very tall, burly man, so no officer wanted to take him on, thinking that he could easily do them harm, which is understandable. The police said that they thought Joe would have put up a fight based on how he looked, but they were surprised that he actually surrendered very easily, which was, I guess, good for them. It was good for them, Joe spent 1 month going back and forth with the police between the bridge and the company where his acts took place. He told officers that the two women that he did that thing to, their remains were behind the company in the woods in several shallow graves. Let me just do my lip liner real quick and then I will finish up this story. And I'm back. Joe later said in his confession that he had no regrets of the people that he had done stuff to, but his only regret was that he did not get to kill the two people that he really wanted to, which was his ex and her new boyfriend. Yeah. So I don't get any of the other killings. If I don't really get it, please tell me if I'm the only one that think that all of the other stuff were unnecessary if he only wanted two people. That's just my thought. Okay, my thought. Like, I don't know, in real life this lip looks good, but on camera, I don't know, it's just not really doing any justice, but it looks better in person. Anyway, this is not about me, this is not about the makeup. The makeup is just something I do. Joe ended his confession saying, I quote, well, that's my story. Horrible, but true. So the next time you're riding down the road and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich. Sometimes you never know who you may be eating. Haha. End quote. I don't know, that seems pretty sick. Like, why would he say that? Like, sometimes that line just makes me, shiver. Like, why would he? I don't know. He seems very disturbed, because if he was only after his ex and her boyfriend, what was all of the rest? Like, it was very unnecessary in my opinion if he was only after those two people. I don't know. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments below. I'm Shania Singh, and this was Thriller Thursday, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!